Are you tired of micromanaging 40 plus different matchups on every gym rerun? Do you want to spam one button and still get 27 plus gyms consistently? Are you tired of your ever-growing Tentacruel and Donphan shiny collection? Hey guys, Jinx here, and today I want to introduce you to my new gym rerun, the Prehistoric 5. This has been a work in progress for more than 6 months, and I'd like to thank my team, Team Void, my Discord community, and especially Brennan, Kinian, and Kevik, specifically for helping me optimize the run to get it to the point that it is today. This is a variant of my old Archeops team, but has been even further optimized to reduce the RNG, especially due to the nerf to strings. One special introduction to the game that sparked the inspiration for this team is Heatran, due to the ability Flash Fire. Now, we'll start by saying Heatran isn't mandatory for this team, and I'll talk about why I use him and an easy replacement for him later if you don't own one. However, you can go get your own whenever you finish the OT Pokedex, and if you haven't yet, check out my Heatran raid guide to get a cheap team that can beat it easily to earn one for yourself. First off, let's take a look at who this gym rerun is for. If you're like me and you don't want to follow a guide while gym rerunning, and you'd rather just press one button and win, then this rerun is for you. It's been optimized for spamming the same move each day at each gym with as little active adaptation as possible. While many guides have matchup dependent if statements, the goal of this one was to make as few as possible with a total of only 5 adaptations in the whole run that are based on watching out for what the gym leader sends out. Compare this to some other popular rerun strategies such as 6 Pillars, which has about 40 matchup dependent if statements, 7 Hells, which has 19, or the new 5-mon Erupting Volcano, which has 35. And you could see why this run is more spammable, less micromanagement, and more multi-device friendly by far compared to any other strategy. If you prefer a focused run that uses a guide and potentially nets you a couple more gyms, then check out those other strats. However, for those of you that are like me and just want to memorize a basic route and spam it, or if you want to run multiple devices simultaneously, this rerun is for you. However, it is important to note that I'm averaging about 27 gyms per run on this with a max of 28 on this route, which is a similar outcome to the other runs even before considering the minimized micromanagement and access to EXP gain on the run. So even if you aren't leveling on this route, in my opinion, it's still the best way to go because it's the easiest way to get through about the same amount of gyms anyway. The EXP is just an extra bonus for you. Now let's start by taking a look at the main benefits of this team. First off, the 5 in the Prehistoric 5 is because this is a 5 Pokemon team. That means that you have the benefit of being able to level a Pokemon in the 6th slot with either an EXP share or an EXP reamplifier. I'd highly recommend using a reamplifier if you do this run often or if you do a lot of leveling in general, as it gives 75% of the XP earned to the leveling mon compared to an EXP share, which only passes on 50%. It also nets you a bonus 5% total, which can be stacked with donator status for another 25% bonus XP. Personally, I use EXP reamplifier and donator status constantly because I do this run daily. One more thing to consider is putting Pokemon in the daycares of each region. You can put 2 Pokemon in each region's daycare and they will receive 20% of the earned XP in that region as bonus XP. This is not taken away from your active team, but just given to them as an additional bonus. Personally, I have way too many raid bonds that I need to level up, so I always keep 10 in the daycares at all times. I recommend leveling them up to about 80 before putting them in, as it's a flat 1k per level, and the final levels are the ones that take an absurd amount of XP. So that way, at level 20, you're paying 20k and you're getting the vast majority of the EXP gain for a minimal cost. While on that topic, I don't recommend leveling them on from level 1 in a gym rerun because you'll be met with many move prompts and even evolutions that can slow you down a lot. I typically EV train mine first and then they'll be around level 40 and usually fully evolved. That's when I finish leveling them up on a rerun. Let's compare the value of the EXP gained on this rerun compared to an EXP service, which typically costs 0.15 to 0.2 Pokeyen per EXP gained. And on a run where you earn close to 400k XP, that would be using reamp and donator status. That's the equivalent of 60 to 80,000 extra Pokeyen. This is about the equivalent of 5 or 6 extra gyms. Even off donator status and using an EXP share, you're still going to net yourself about 40 to 50,000 extra Pokeyen's worth of XP. You can use this to level up your raid mons, level up Pokemon for profit like Smeargle, Breloom, Meowth, or whatever else is in demand in the market. This is usually where I find I make the most money, is finding niche things that people don't think about that get to level 100 and are worth a lot of money because there's not many on the market. Or you could even start up your own leveling service and use your reruns to do it. Next, let's talk about the teams and builds. This team will use Torkoal, Blastoise, Archeops, Typhlosion, and Heatran. Let's start by talking about Torkoal, our weather controller, using the ability Drought to set Sun when he comes in. His job is to set Sun, and then get out, so we'll only run him with one move, Explosion. We want him to have max attack IV and EV. Put 252 special defense EV on him as well, so he can survive until the explosion goes off. As for the other IVs, higher HP and defenses is ideal, but don't break the bank on it. Shoot for about 20 plus in all three, and you should be totally fine. Speed doesn't matter at all, but lower is always better with weather setters. We want Brave or Adamant Nature to boost the attack further. Choice Band will be the held item to further boost that explosion damage. Next up is Archeops. This will need max attack and speed, so 31 attack and 31 speed IV, along with 252 attack and speed EVs. Ideally, you want low HP and defense also, so that if he comes out with Torkoal, the explosion will KO him for a smoother transition. Even with 0 HP and defense, however, the explosion isn't guaranteed to OHKO, but the AI will always prioritize Archeops over Torkoal due to the defense difference. So just minimize your defenses to help you save some money, and also to help it go down even if only one of the opposing Pokemon lands an attack on it. Lonely Nature is ideal here to help with the explosion damage, but Adamant works totally fine in my experience. We'll be spamming Rock Slide every time other than one gym where he's going to use Tailwind. You want to use PP Max on Rock Slide because we're going to be using it many times in a row before visiting a PC. Those are the only two moves that we're going to be using on Archeops. We'll put a wide lens on it to get the accuracy of Rock Slide up to 99%. Due to it having 99% accuracy, however, you may need to make an adjustment and heal in extra time throughout the run. However, I don't find this to cause too many issues in my runs, but it is an important thing to be aware of. Just as a note, I know some people like to think about Aerodactyl as an alternative here. If you have one, you can use it, but I have tried Adamant Aerodactyl and it doesn't quite have the same amount of attack and it doesn't knock everything out as smoothly. If you have one, you can use one until you build yourself an Archeops, but I would definitely recommend going with Archeops in this run. Next up is Blastoise. This will have max special attack and speed, 31 IV in each and 252 EV in each. Similar to Archeops, you want minimal HP and defense IVs, so Mild Nature is ideal, although I have used the high defense Modest one and it's worked totally fine for me. Just try to pick breeders with low IVs and it'll do the job for you. If you want the most optimal IVs though, going between 10 to 22 HP and defense IVs with Mild Nature, or 0 to 9 HP and defense on Modest Nature will help with two things. First, it'll ensure that Torkoal's explosion OHKOs it from 100%, so even if both of the opposing Mons miss their attacks, it'll still go down. And secondly, one of the 5 teams at one of the gym leaders in the run runs a little bit smoother with defensive IVs in this range. If you're curious, you can see the details in the Pokepaste below. The only move he's going to be using is Water Spout. Keep in mind, this is an egg move, so make sure that yours has it before you train yours up. You'll need to PP Max it and put a Choice Scarf on Blastoise, and he will just be a Water Spout spammer throughout the whole run. Typhlosion is our next team member. He also needs max special attack and speed. The HP and defenses don't matter on Typhlosion since it is never out with Torkoal for an explosion. Modest, Mild, or Rash Nature will do the trick, but Modest is ideal here. Typhlosion is going to be using hidden ability Flash Fire, which can be acquired either by starting with a hidden ability breeder or by using an ability patch on a Typhlosion that you already have. These can be bought off the GTL, usually for around 125k, or acquired by completing the regional OT decks in a region that you had a fire starter in. Just go visit the professor in the starting town after finishing the decks, and you will get your patch. The Flash Fire ability gives Typhlosion +1 special attack to fire moves when hit by a fire move, and prevents all damage from the incoming fire move. He'll be using 2 moves throughout this run, Eruption, which needs to be PP maxed, and Lava Plume, and his item will be Choice Specs. Now let's look at the standout member of the team, Heatran. Heatran is a great addition to this team for a few reasons. First, and honestly the most important reason, is because it can play the same role as Typhlosion, however it looks different, which makes choosing your lead into a gym easier. If you have tried my version of this rerun before, you may know the difficulty of identifying which Typhlosion has specs and which has Scarf. Having a Mon with similar stats and access to Eruption allows us to easily identify which is which and reduces the mental load of the run even further. It also has slightly higher special attack as well, which helps smooth out some damage rolls, such as the Swanna in Misralton and the Lantern in Mauville, who used to survive with about 1% HP versus Typhlosion, but now are knocked out each time. He'll be built the same as Typhlosion with max special attack and speed. The key benefit to Heatran is the ability Flash Fire. Now that Heatran and Typhlosion both have Flash Fire, they can use Lava Plume to hit their opponents and their partner, giving a boost to their partner while also taking out the opponents. He'll also need Eruption, which can be added by BP in the Battle Frontier in Hoenn for 8,000 BP. This can definitely be a bit pricey, so again, if you're struggling to get a Heatran set up, try out using a second Typhlosion with hidden ability until you have the funds to get a proper Heatran build. This Eruption also needs to be PP maxed. The use of Lava Plume helps save PP throughout the run, and also having Scarfed Heatran, Lava Plume into Specs Typhlosion, who uses Eruption, actually leads to a higher damage output than both of them just using Eruption. The last move you're going to want to add in is Earth Power. This is for one very niche situation, but there is one team in Olivine and Johto that will attack Archeops with Scald, and if it lands a burn or crits, it can cause it to go down, and you'll need to bring Heatran in to clear the team. That team will have a Flash Fire Rapidash on it, so having this Earth Power can clean up that one really rare situation. Again, you could go with a second Typhlosion here and add hidden ability to it to replace the Heatran, although you may run into the couple of these situations where a low roll or lack of Earth Power costs you an extra turn. Also, navigating is a bit of a pain with the two Typhlosions. But once you have your decks done and you've got your Heatran, this is an awesome way to get it dusted off and get it out of your PC box. There's a Pokepaste along with a detailed path of the route that you can check out in the description. Make sure to watch the full run here though for a more detailed breakdown of each gym, and a few more advanced things that aren't noted in the doc. Before I show you the run, I just want to go over a few tips that can make your run go even faster. First off, you can hold down Control and your A key and it will rapidly spam A for you. This can save you some time from selecting moves. Just note that it will always choose the same slot that was used previously. So if you have Tailwind for example, and it's in the second slot, whichever Mon comes in to replace Archeops after it goes down, if you spam A, it will always choose the second move slot for that position since you used it on the previous turn. Number 2, thank you to Kevek for finding this one. We can actually use the last note to help us to A-spam even better. If you put Explosion on Torkoal in your second move slot, then if you replace Heatran into the same position that Torkoal was in, then when you continue to A-spam, it will always select the second move slot, which is Lava Plume. You'll always be selecting Lava Plume after a Torkoal explodes, so this can be a nice reduction in your micromanagement. Number 3, practice the route. It'll take a few runs to get the leads memorized, but with the similarity between each run, it's quite easy to memorize. After a handful of runs, you should be able to save some time since you won't have to consult the guide anymore because you should have the leads and path memorized. And eventually, after a few more runs, you might get the few variations down too. Also, make sure to download strings to speed up the text in between gyms. These aren't what they used to be, however, I have noticed a significant increase in the speed by using SuperStrings. There's a link in the description. Next up, if you're going to run multiple Android devices, I highly recommend using a program called SCRCPY to screen mirror your devices to your desktop, which can make it much easier than trying to go from your PC down to your phone or swap between keyboard and mouse or controller and touchscreen or whatever you're using. There's a link to a video that'll teach you how to set up the program in the description. One note with that though is if you are using SCRCPY, don't use Control A on the Android device as it will bug out the UI and you'll have to relog. Instead, just spam your A button as fast as you can. Before getting into the detailed run, make sure you're subscribed if you want more PokeMMO content, especially guides such as this one. Make sure you smash that like button and let me know what you think about it in the comments below. There's a link to the Discord community in the description as well if you have anything you want to chat about or any optimizations to my strats that you want to share with the community. Now let's get into the full run. I'll show you the path and explain any risks and notes about each gym as we go through them. So just before we get started, I just wanted to show you what my team looks like. Again, the IVs don't need to match this exactly, but just to give you a general idea of what I'm running. Here are their natures, their EVs, their IVs, and their moves and abilities. As for what I'm leveling, this is just a Raidmon that I built. It's a modest Zoroark, just for special attacking, and I like the alpha outline, so that's pretty much the only reason I built it that way. It's got 569,172 total XP. This Zoroark is my OT, which means I'm actually giving up some XP gain off of this. If you're leveling Pokemon that are not your OT, you get the trade bonus. So by leveling Pokemon you buy off the GTL, or by breeding on alts and transferring them to the account you're leveling on, you'll actually get even more XP. Just a thing to note if you're looking to maximize the efficiency out of this run. And we're starting with 1,278,239 Pokeyen. We'll see where we lead off with this run. The Lava Ridge gym is really straightforward, there's no variations. The only thing you might need to adapt to is if the 99% accurate Rock Slide misses. This is a pretty rare occurrence, but just something to be aware of that might make you require an extra heal. This is persistent throughout the whole run anytime Archeops is in, so this is the only time that I'll mention that as an RNG element. Nice smooth Lava Ridge, we're gonna now head off to Mauville Town in the Electric Gym. We're gonna leave Archeops in the lead for the first 3 gyms of the run, so all we're gonna do here is swap out Blastoise and Heatran. We're just gonna be using Rock Slide and Eruption here, and all 5 teams that this leader has go down from just Rock Slide and Eruption. One note is that if you've replaced Heatran with a Typhlosion, I believe that there's a damage roll on the Lantern team. So 1 in 5, you'll be doing a damage roll. But with Heatran and Archeops, it's a nice smooth 3-turn gym every time. And with Mauville down, we're gonna head to Fortree next, the Flying Gym. We're gonna swap Typhlosion in for Heatran. And again, it's just Rock Slide and Eruption. This is one of the 5 gyms in which you have to watch out for what the opponent sends out. If they send out a Pelipper and Dragonite, you will have to make a slight change to your plan. When you see Rain come out, your Eruption damage will be cut off, so in that case, you're going to swap Archeops for Torkoal. As they swap in, the Rain will go away, and the Eruption will knock out the Pelipper and damage the Dragonite. Every time in that situation, the Dragonite is going to use Thunder on Archeops, which is now Torkoal, but that Torkoal has that high special defensive stat from the 252 EV, so it'll either tank it or it'll miss because it's 70%, and then you could just safe swap on the next turn right back into Archeops, and continue the Rock Slide and Eruption spam. Next, we're going to be heading to Dewford, the Fighting Gym, and we're going to be using Blastoise and Heatran. This is a nice and smooth 3-turn gym, where the Water Spout Eruption will KO all 5 teams smoothly here. As we move on, we're going to go to Petalburg, the normal gym. We're going to keep our Blastoise lead and swap in Torkoal to get Sun up at this gym. The doors don't really matter what order you go in, just run straight to the gym by going north as quick as possible. You're just going to Water Spout and use Explosion here. Then we're going to go into Typhlosion using Eruption and Heatran using Lava Bloom. Sometimes slacking here will use Rock Slide, which can cause a flinch like it did here, which is a little annoying because it costs us a turn. However, overall, it's not a huge deal. The Eruption Lava Plume combo is actually the highest damage combo we can make. It does more damage than both of them erupting alone. So you'll see every time we set Sun, and then we can use this combo so that even something like a Blissey or Chansey will still go down in 1 turn. As we leave this gym, we're going to be hitting Teleport on our way out, healing up, and then heading to Unova. Make sure you heal in Hoenn before going to Unova for 2 reasons. 1, it's quicker in Hoenn to heal. Second, the first gym we're going to be going to in Unova is Castelia, which is closer to the port than it is to the PC, so we're going to go straight there from the port. As we go to this gym, we're going to make sure we have Blastoise and Heatran at the lead of our party. All 5 teams here will go down in 3 turns. However, one thing is the team with Excelgor will outspeed the Heatran, and it'll use Focus Blast on him. Focus Blast is not 100% accuracy, so it doesn't always hit, but if it does, it'll do some damage to Heatran, and since we're going to be erupting in the next gym, we need to heal that up so that we're erupting at full damage. So in the case that you come across the Excelgor team, make sure you either use some potions, usually it does enough that 6 potions heals you up, or you can just teleport and heal up at the Poke Center before going to the next gym. Next gym we're going to be heading to is Nimbasa, the Electric Gym. We're going to be leading again with Torkoal and Heatran, so no change needs to be done here. This is a nice smooth gym, however there's just the one chance you get Melodic. The Melodic team will hurt Heatran, however it won't kill, and Heatran's not going to be using Eruption in the next gym, he's just going to be using Lava Plume, so if he gets hurt, that's totally fine, just continue on. As we move on to Driftvale, our next gym, we're going to lead with Archeops and Torkoal. If you lead with Blastoise here, there's some of the teams that can actually cost a couple extra teams due to weird AI, so lead with Archeops in this case. All the teams here will be nice and smooth. Actually, technically, it's the Archeops that makes the AI go weird. and there's one team that has a Seismitoad and a Sableye, and for some reason, if you have the Archeops out, the Sableye will fake out Torkoal, which sucks because it costs a turn. However, the next turn, it'll Sucker Punch its own Seismitoad, and that'll cause a knockout to happen. If you have Blastoise out, it'll do some annoying things like recover, so you want to make sure that you have your Archeops out in this case. Just like in the previous Drought setup, the leads here sometimes will use Rock Slide, or even one of them uses Fake Out, which is annoying because it'll cost an extra turn. However, it's not a huge deal overall. As we finish up at Drift Veil, we're going to be healing up at the Poke Center, and then going to Striation. After I did that original run, we actually found another optimization to this gym, so I'm just going to replace it with this here. We're going to start with the Fire Gym, and Blastoise and Archeops will be our lead. 4 out of the 5 teams here are totally smooth with just 3 turns. However, there's one team, the team that leads Ninetales and Typhlosion, which will have a Stoutland that survives the Water Spout and Rock Slide. If the defense of your Blastoise is relatively high and the defense of your Archeops is low, the Stoutland will Wild Charge into Archeops. Archeops is not needed in any of the future gyms other than in the water one here to be exploded on. So if he gets hurt from the Wild Charge, it doesn't impact the run. It seems, however, that the Stoutland does not like to knock itself out with the Wild Charge, so if you do too much damage to it, it'll sometimes just use Retaliate, which is normal type, so it'll go into Blastoise. In that case, Blastoise will be injured, which won't affect the Striation gyms, however it will mean that you need to heal up before continuing on. It's a pretty low chance though, because it would require it to actually attack the Blastoise over the Archeops, and also there's a chance that it'll just flinch from the Rock Slide. But it's important to still be aware and know if you're going to heal with potions or a PC reset after Striation if this occurs. As we move over to the Grass Gym, we're just going to be using Eruption on Heatran and Lava Plume on Typhlosion. This is a smooth one where all 5 teams will get knocked out without doing any damage to either lead. And finally, we're going to go to the Water Leader and use Torkoal Explosion and Archeops Rock Slide. Then we're just going to go into our usual Heatran, Lava Plume, Typhlosion, Eruption. This is another gym that'll leave your team unharmed. Once the explosion goes off, the Eruption and Lava Plume will KO all 5 teams that are here. With these 3 gyms done, we're going to next head to Misralton. So as we finish up here, we're going to be leading with Heatran and Blastoise as we go to Misralton. This is another one of the gyms in which Heatran works more smoothly than a Typhlosion because of that tiny bit of extra special attack. There's a Swanna in this gym where if you're using a Typhlosion, it'll survive on about 1 HP some of the times. However, with Heatran, it clears it every time. The only one weird team here is a Pelipper who has a red card, so it'll set rain and then it'll eject out your Blastoise because Blastoise is faster than Heatran. When this happens, just attack through. Try to do as much damage as you can, and usually you can get through just fine. If you get swapped to your leveling Pokemon, it'll probably get knocked out, in which case, since you'll have a rain up, try to get your Blastoise back in. You'll lose a bit of XP, but it's not a huge deal. The only thing that would cause you to have to go back to a PC and heal up is if Heatran or Typhlosion die in this situation. Even if either of them or both of them get hurt, it's totally fine because our next gym, both of them are just going to be using Lava Plume. So it's okay if they get hurt here, just if they die, you will need to go heal up before continuing on. As we finish up here, we're going to head to Icarus, the Ice Gym. We're going to lead with Heatran and Typhlosion. Both of them here are going to be using Lava Plume. They're pretty squishy teams, so the 2 Lava Plumes into the Ice types will knock them out consistently. The one annoying thing at this gym is the Snow Cloak users. Because they will have some evasion, there's a chance that you miss your Lava Plumes. If you miss both of the Lava Plumes, the Frostlass will just use Blizzard on you, and it does about 5% damage. It's very, very, very minimal, so that shouldn't cause any issues. If you're really, really unlucky and you miss both Lava Plumes and they come in with the Blizzard and they land a Freeze, that can be more annoying to deal with, in which case I would just use an Ice Heal on the frozen Pokemon, and then just continue Lava Pluming through. And with that, we're gonna go back, heal up, and next we're gonna head to Opalucid, the Dragon Gym. We're leading once again with Archeops and Torkoal. Now this is one gym that you need to use a different move on Archeops. This is the one and only gym you're going to use Tailwind at. So you're going to Tailwind and Explode. If you're like me and you forget to Tailwind every once in a while, you're pretty much fine in most of the cases. There is just a couple of choice scarfed really fast Pokemon here, like a Haxorus and a Hydreigon. that can outspeed your team and do some damage and start to cause some problems. A couple of the teams you'll be fine if you forget to Tailwind, however those faster teams will do damage to you and you'll have to do an extra heal if you screw that up. On the lead we got here, there's actually a really fast side dragon that'll Dark Pulse Archeops. If that Dark Pulse gets the 10% flinch chance and you don't get Tailwind off, in this team specifically, it's actually totally fine if the Tailwind doesn't go off. You'll still get through and you will outspeed everything on this team. As we finish this gym up and head to our next gym, we're actually going to be flying back to Castelia and swapping regions over to Johto. The first gym we're going to be going to is Violet City's Flying Gym. We lead with Heatran and Blastoise, and it's just a regular Eruption and Water Spout gym. There's actually 3 teams here that can damage our Heatran and Blastoise. One is a fast Crobat that will Sludge Bomb Blastoise. One is a Aerodactyl that'll use Earthquake, hurting both. And one is a Swellow. It'll Brave Bird into Blastoise. All the teams here are still cleared in 3 turns, even if this happens. And in the following gym, we don't need Blastoise, and Heatran is just going to be using Lava Plume. So if it comes in hurt, it's totally fine. Just continue on. As we head to Mahogany, the Ice Gym next, we're going to be using Heatran, a Lava Plume, and Typhlosion, Eruption. Most of the time you could just use 2 plumes here, but we have the extra Eruption PP, so might as well use it because there is some pretty tanky ice types here. Just like I mentioned at the previous Ice Gym, there's a bit of annoyance with Snowcloak, but other than that, nothing too much to mention about this gym. There is a Tentacruel team here that will take 4 turns because Tentacruel is quite tanky, so it'll do a bit of damage back to you, but won't cause any problems in the clear. As we leave this gym, we're going to be going teleporting, healing up, and heading to Goldenrod next. Goldenrod is the only gym in which the order that you send your Pokemon out matters. The reason being that there is a Ditto team, and it'll always turn into the Pokemon on the right side. So we need a Blastoise on the left and Heatran on the right. So make sure Blastoise is at the very top lead of your party and Heatran is just below it. Water Spout will OHKO the Heatran, whereas if you turn it to Blastoise, the Eruption will not OHKO it and it'll end up getting knocked out, but it'll be about an extra turn or 2 to clear. The Ditto team is already a 4-turn team because it has a Blissey which will tank the hits, so Ditto comes in last all by itself, which is why it's on the left side. As we clear up this gym, we're going to be heading to Azalea, the bug gym next. Azalea is the second team in which we actually have to watch for what our opponent sends out. We're going to be leading with Typhlosion and Heatran. Typhlosion's is going to be using Lava Plume and Heatran's going to be using Eruption. The leads don't matter here, however there is one team that on turn 2, it'll send out a Tyranitar. If you see the Tyranitar come out on turn 2, the sand will cut the damage down too much for us to be effective with our special attacks. In that case, you're going to take your Typhlosion, you're going to swap it to Torkoal, Heatran's just going to keep erupting through. Heatran will take a little bit of damage along with Torkoal as the Rock Slide comes in from Tyranitar, since it won't get OHKO'd. It won't do too much damage though. On the following turn, you're just going to swap Torkoal straight back into Typhlosion, so Torkoal stays alive for the next gym. Heatran's going to wipe out the Tyranitar and Shuckle with the Eruption, and then Typhlosion can join for the final turn, adding his Plume again. Other than that, the other 4 teams are totally smooth here. Next, we're going to head to Cyanwood, the fighting gym. Here, we're going to lead with Blastoise and Torkoal. Now, this is one gym that I will make a note on that if you get annoyed by those extra turn flinches, I would recommend considering skipping this one. There are a couple teams here that use Rock Slide in turn 1, some where they both use Rock Slide on turn 1, so you do pretty often get flinched here. It can be a little annoying to have your Explosion lead flinch, and I've mentioned it in the previous ones. However, this gym has a lot of Rock Slide leaders compared to the other ones, which only have 1 or 2, so it's much more common here. Again, I don't typically mind getting flinched. Worst case, it's just a turn, maybe 2 in a really bad situation, so I always just keep this gym in my route. Other than that, we're just going to be transitioning into our Typhlosion, Eruption, Heatran, Lava Plume. Next, we're going to head to Olivine, the Steel Gym with Archeops and Typhlosion. This gym's pretty straightforward, just Erupt and Rock Slide. However, there is a little bit of variation since Archeops has a chance of going down here. There's 3 out of the 5 teams here that can knock out Archeops. One is on the final turn, there's Scizor that'll Bullet Punch it. It's not a big deal because Typhlosion will KO the other 2. and it won't cost you any turns. One of the other teams is a Blastoise, in which you roll about a 50% chance to KO it in one turn. If you don't KO, there's a chance that it'll knock out your Archeops. If that ever happens, just replace with Heatran, and you can just Lava Plume into your Typhlosion or Erupt if you have the PP necessary for it. The one weird one to watch out for is the team with Corsola. The Corsola team is usually pretty straightforward. It's just an extra turn, usually just a 4-turn team. If it crits or burns, it can result in Archeops getting knocked out. The issue with this is that one of the other Pokemon on the team is a Flashfire Rapidash. So when you replace with Heatran, you're gonna need to use Earth Power. This is the whole reason Earth Power is on the team. It's literally just for this one really niche situation. But if that comes up, I just want to make sure that you are prepared for it. So if you're in the Corsola team and your Archeops goes down, replace with Heatran and use Earth Power. With all of mine down, we're going to head to the PC, heal up, and then go to Sinnoh. Every gym we go to in Sinnoh will lead with Archeops, so put him at the lead of your party, and then we'll just swap out his partner from there. We're going to start with Veilstone, Archeops, and Typhlosion. This is a pretty straightforward gym. There's a chance that one of the Infernapes here does some damage to Archeops. I usually just continue on. However, there is technically a little risk going to Eterna with a hurt Archeops, so you can heal if you want to be totally safe. However, in my experience, it's been fine to just progress. Next, we're going to swap Typhlosion for Heatran, and we're going to lead into the Eterna gym with Archeops and Heatran. Eterna's a very straightforward gym. However, there is one team here with a Melodic, which will survive. You might flinch it, so it might not hurt you, but if it does, it'll hit Archeops and do some damage to it. This will activate Defeatist, making his damage output cut down a lot. So if you have an Archeops here that's less than 50% HP, then you're going to need to heal before continuing on. As we leave, we're going to be going to Sunny Shore. Sunny Shore is the electric gym, and we're going to be leading with Archeops and Blastoise. You might think it's weird to lead Blastoise into an electric gym. However, this gym always leads with a rain setter, so we're going to be using that against him with our own Blastoise. This is the third team in the run that requires you to watch for what the opponent sends out. 4 out of the 5 teams here are just a nice smooth 3-turn sweep. However, if you see a Lantern across from you, you're going to swap your Blastoise to Torkoal. So we're going to swap it to Sun. Archeops might go down if the Thunder lands. If it does, just put Blastoise back in and let it die. Otherwise, just keep Archeops in and Rock Slide. We're going to explode Torkoal in this situation. And then we're going to replace with Typhlosion using Eruption and Heatran using Lava Plume. If you see this situation, unfortunately you're going to have to skip the next gym because we won't have our Torkoal that we need to take on Pastoria. If you want to, you can definitely heal up and go to Pastoria anyway. However, I usually find it's not worth the time. As we leave that gym, we're going to be heading to Pastoria. Here we're going to be leading with Archeops and Torkoal. Just our standard drought set into Typhlosion, Eruption, Heatran, Lava Plume. As we leave this gym, we're going to be going straight to Kanto. This gym is right next to the port, so it's actually quicker to just go straight to the port from here and then heal in Kanto. Healing in Kanto is also a lot quicker than healing in Sinnoh, and also by doing this, you don't risk getting in an encounter in the 2 water blocks in between the port and the gym. We're going to be going straight to Vermilion and leading with Heatran and Typhlosion. Heatran's going to be using Lava Plume here, and Typhlosion's going to be using Eruption. This is the 4th gym that you need to look across and see what you're faced up against. 4 of the teams here are just a nice, clean 3-turn sweep. However, if you see a Politoed come down and Rain gets set, we're going to swap Heatran to Torkoal and Erupt with Typhlosion. The next turn, you're just going to swap Torkoal straight back into Heatran, and then finish as usual with Heatran, Lava Plume, and Typhlosion Eruption. Next gym we're going to head to is Pewter, the Rock Gym. We're going to lead with Blastoise and Archeops. This is the 5th and final team that we need to watch matchups for. There's a couple teams here that can actually damage or kill Archeops, in which case you're just going to replace with Heatran. However, there is one team that we need a specific solve for, and that's the Toxicroak lead. The Toxicroak has Dry Skin, which means our Water Spout won't do any damage to it. If you see the Toxicroak, you're going to swap your Blastoise to Heatran. Your Archeops usually will die here unless you got some Rock Slide flinches. Either way, you're just going to use Lava Plume on Heatran. If you can, swap directly into Heatran and Typhlosion, and you're just going to use Plume on both of them in this gym. So here it was one of those situations in which Archeops went down. The Slowbro team We'll use Muddy Water, which can be really annoying to deal with because of the accuracy drops, which I got on both of our Pokemon. So we got pretty much worst RNG we could end up with here. However, it's still going to work out totally fine. You don't need Archeops in the next gym, and it's fine if Blastoise goes in injured into the next gym, because we're just going to be exploding on it. So as we go into Cerulean, the water gym, we're just going to be using Archeops or Blastoise and Torkoal. Prioritize Archeops if he's alive here, as it'll draw more attacks. Sometimes Torkoal can get targeted here if you have Blastoise out, so it's a little easier if we just have Archeops out. However, it still works totally fine with Blastoise. There's one team here that has I think it's a Choice Scarf Starmie, and it'll outspeed you. It'll attack into Typhlosion and do some damage. It won't do enough to knock him out, but it could knock him down to about half. If this happens, just continue on as normal. In the next gym, Typhlosion's going to be using Lava Plume anyways, so it won't cause any issues. Oh, this is the team we got here. We got the really fast Starmie. It hit a Psyshock into Typhlosion, doing about 30% HP. Even with Eruption, that's not too big of a hit, but in our next gym, we're going to be using Lava Plume anyway, so it won't cause any issues there. And our final 28th gym that we're going to be heading to is Celadon, the Grass Gym. Here, we're just going to be using Typhlosion with Lava Plume and Heatran with Eruption. There are a couple teams that can cause some damage here, however, these two should clear them all out with no problems. This gym's usually relatively consistent, however, it is a little RNG dependent, which is why I saved it till the very end. The Dragonite team here can be quite annoying to deal with. It might end up knocking out your Typhlosion, in which case hopefully you have Archeops or Blastoise. If you lost one at Pewter, of course you won't. Either way, the Typhlosion should get targeted down, and you'll have a Flash Fire boosted Erupting Heatran. So even if you throw your leveling Pokemon in to draw some aggro, it should still get through. It just might cost you a couple extra turns. And with that, we got all 28 gyms completed on our coin. So that is the Prehistoric 5 run. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. You pretty much just do the same thing every day. I run at about 150 ping and can get 28 gyms done most days, depending on how much attention I'm paying. If I'm playing on mobile or pretty casually, sometimes I'll get between 25 to 27. However, I'd say a pretty standard average run if you're on PC and paying somewhat attention is 27 gyms. And 28 on a good day. If you finish early and you get really good RNG and you're good at running and you have decent ping, you can always run down and fight P.I. Carlos in Sinnoh as well. Let's check out how much we earned. We started with 569,172 XP on the Zoroark, and now we're at 993,872 for a total XP gain of 424,700. This will change a little depending on the teams you get matched up against, but it's pretty much on average about 425,000 when I use my donator status and EXP reamplifier. I could boost this further with a trade bonus, however, most of the time I'm leveling up my own OTs. Check out the doc linked in the description with a detailed path and a chart that shows how much XP you'll earn on average in a variety of different situations, depending on if you're using EXP share, donator status, or trade bonuses. We also started the run with 1,278,239 Pokeyen, and finished with 1,672,154 Pokeyen, for a total earnings of 393,915 Pokeyen, just under 400k. For a pretty brain-dead AFK rerun, I'd say this is pretty damn good earnings. And if you were able to make it to P.I. Carlos, and if you were able to get a run in which you could hit P.I. Carlos, you'd be hitting 400k in the hour. So that's it for the Prehistoric 5 Gym Rerun team. If you find any further optimizations, let me know in the comments below or join the Discord and let me know what you find there. Make sure to like this video if it helped you out, and don't forget to subscribe for more PokeMMO videos, especially if you're interested in multi-gym rerunning. I have my region speedrun guides coming out soon, so keep an eye out for those. If you want to go above and beyond and support the channel even further, check out the join button below. Thank you so much to all our current YouTube members and to all the Twitch subscribers. And that's all I have for you today, so I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.